Hi everybody, I'm Ryan. Today we're going to talk about how to sideboard with Wurm Creativity, also known as Temur Creativity. We'll be focusing on the top 10 most popular decks in Pioneer, and hopefully you can use that information to teach yourself how to sideboard against the rest of the decks. So let's jump into it. So this is my Wurm Creativity deck. If you want to learn more about this deck, how to play it, card choices, all of that stuff, then you should check out the deck tech, which was posted yesterday. That's not what we're here to talk about, but I will talk about the role of each one of the sideboard cards before we get into the top 10. First off, Aether Gust is for any deck that has red or green spells that you care about or permanents that you care about, things like Nykthos Ramp or Hidden Strings or the Mirror Match or things like that. Disdainful Stroke is, for against decks that have spells that +4 or greater that we care about. Again, things like Nykthos Ramp, Blue-White Control, Hidden Strings, Mirror. Negate is for winning these counter wars, and same thing with Mystical Dispute, but also very good against spirits. Shark Typhoon and Hullbreaker Horror are for decks that are really good at answering our combo. And with Hullbreaker Horror, I'm going to mention this every time we bring in Hullbreaker Horror, we can kind of play a game with our opponent, like a mind game thing, where we side into Hullbreaker Horror for game 2. If we show Hullbreaker Horror, then maybe side back into Worldspine Wurm Xenagos because they think we're on the Hullbreaker Horror plan. There's definitely a mind games thing where you kind of need to be random and chaotic with whether you keep Hullbreaker Horror in or not. Rending Volley, very good against like Greasefang, Spirits, Humans, decks like that. And then Brotherhood End is for any deck that like goes wide, things like Spirits or Humans. Also really good against Raxac. So let's jump into it with the most popular deck in Pioneer, which is Nykthos Ramp. Against Nykthos Ramp, obviously we're bringing in Aether Gust. Obviously we're bringing in Disdainful Stroke. I'm also a fan of Negate because it hits Storm, Karn, and Kiora. Against this deck, we're going to be shaving a lot of like just pieces here and there. Volcanic Spite only hits Mana Dorks, so it's kind of medium, but we also like it to shuffle back in Xenagos. Like shaving an Impulse, and then shaving a Fable because it's kind of slow. This is how I sideboard against Nykthos. The second most popular deck in Pioneer is Raxac. Raxac, we're bringing in Aether Gust and Negate just to stop their disruption just a little bit. Brotherhood's End is really good against their artifacts that they end up with a million of. And then, like, removal's not great, so we're going to be bringing out Fiery Impulse. And a lot of their stuff is really low cost, so things like Spell Pierce and Make Disappear sometimes aren't very good. So this is what we're going to be bringing out. The third most popular deck in Pioneer is Azorius Spirits. Spirits is one of these counterspell decks that we were talking about. So I like switching out for the Hullbreaker Horrors, which we're going to be taking out these guys. And we're going to totally change our game plan. We do not need creativity for Hullbreaker Horror. We're just going to be an Izzet control deck. We're going to be bringing in these Rending Volleys. We're going to be bringing in Brotherhood's End. We're going to stopping our opponent from doing the thing and just be a solid Izzet control deck with a Hullbreaker Horror finisher because we dig through our deck so much. Shark Typhoons, Mystical Disputes, obviously great because they can counter a lot of the cards in their deck. Bringing out Negate, though, like, it's kind of nice to hit counter spells. Bringing out the combo with Creativity. Big score, just like additional cost being discard a card, but if it gets countered, it's like matters. But this is how I sideboard against Spirits. We are changing our game plan to Izzet control. The fourth most popular deck is Azorius Control. Similarly to the Spirits deck, against these counterspell decks, I like switching up the game plan entirely. So we're going to be bringing out our combo, and then we also have to bring out removal. We'll likely have to keep in some number of Volcanic Spite depending on the amount we bring in. But we'll be bringing in Hullbreaker Horror. We're bringing in Shark Typhoon. Mystical Dispute is obviously great. Negate is obviously great. Disdainful Stroke is great. And as you see, we're going to have to keep in Volcanic Spite. But Rending Volley are definitely better than Fiery Impulse. So I sideboard against Control. The fifth most popular deck is Abzan Greasefang. Against Greasefang, we're bringing in Rending Volley to interrupt the combo. And we are bringing in Negate to just, like, if we can hit like a Grizzly Salvage or something like that, Negate's actually very powerful. We're bringing out 2 Fiery Impulse. I think leaving in some number of Fiery Impulse is powerful in case you hit Spell Mastery, but often they are comboing before we have Spell Mastery. We're going to be shaving a Spike Field Hazard. It doesn't interrupt anything. It's literally just a land, which we do need to keep some number in our deck. And we're shaving a Fable just because it's too slow. Play sideboard against Greasefang. The sixth most popular deck is Mono White Humans. Against Mono White, we are bringing in Rending Volley and Brotherhood's End, obviously. And then we are taking out a lot of our slower cards and cards that don't interact, like Negate, like Spell Pierce. Big scores a lot of mana for not a lot of interaction on the board. And we're going to be shaving an Impulse. Again, just not interacting with the board. So this is how I sideboard against Humans. The seventh most popular deck is Lotus Field. Against Lotus, we are bringing in our counter magic to interrupt their combo as much as possible. And we're going to be bringing out cards that don't do anything. Volcanic Spite, Fire Impulse. We can keep some number of Volcanic Spite in, because we can always like target our Goblin or something like that to shuffle Xenagos back in or whatever. But so I sideboard against Lotus. The 8th most popular deck is Rakdos Midrange. Against Rakdos Midrange, I'm a fan of Negate, being able to hit Fable or like Thoughtseize or things like that. All of good. Also a fan of Aether Gust for similar reasons and stopping their red cards, obviously. Weirdly enough, I'm also a fan of bringing out Xenagos because just a Worldspine Wurm is often enough against this deck. You resolve a Worldspine Wurm, it is just over, and actually they're very good at like instant speed killing something when you combo, so Xenagos often does nothing. So I'm just going to keep Worldspine Wurm in and Xenagos, and we only have Creativity for 1. We get a 15-15 and go, right? And then our opponent can't answer it. And we shave in a Spikefield Hazard because it doesn't actually kill anything in our opponent's deck. It's just a land, but we move them in. And we're going to shave on a Spell Pierce just because it's easy to play around. So I sideboard against Red-Black. The 9th most popular deck is the Mirror Match. In the Creativity Mirror, we are bringing in our counter magic. Obviously, all very, very good. And because they're bringing in counter magic, we have to assume our opponent's sideboarding the same. We are siding out of the combo. And Xenagos and Worldspine Wurm are hitting the bin. The thing is that removal is also like pretty bad, except for exactly against Fable. And so we're siding out of removal. We are keeping Creativity in because if we hit Heartbreaker Horror, we kind of just win. But we're siding out of everything else. So I sideboard in the Mirror Match. And the 10th and final deck that we are going to talk about is it Phoenix? Against Phoenix, we were bringing Rending Volley because Thing and Ice is actually really good at interrupting stuff and like killing us very quickly. Mystical Dispute for counter magic. Aether Gust to remove Phoenixes and get rid of other stuff, I guess. Negate because most of their deck are non-creature spells. And like before, we are getting rid of the combo. Xenagos and Worldspine Wurm. Our normal removal does very little. I'm not interested in killing Phoenixes. We're going to keep him some number of Volcanic Spites though, just in case we need to, just like draw more, and like sometimes slowing them down is like okay. We're going to shave some big score because getting that countered is literally the end of the world. And we're going to shave on Creativity because we can only Creativity into Heartbreaker Horror, and we only need so I sideboard against Phoenix. There you have how to sideboard against the top 10 most popular decks with Worldspine Wurm Creativity. I realized while I was recording this that I have done this deck tech and sideboard game series before, right after the Pro Tour. So let's consider this an update. I feel like I understand this deck a lot better now, and there's been some changes in tuning since the Pro Tour to adapt to the meta. So I don't think this is a wasted effort. If you like this video and want to see more videos like this, and want to see more revisions to deck techs and sideboard guides that I did in months past, please let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social medias. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.